51 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's recording, so whenever you guys want to start.
Boom. Everything's recording.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, welcome, lads. We're here. It is October, the day of Uncommon Man for October. And so we're in the studio doing another little recording of the Uncommon Man podcast, title to be confirmed. How are we both feeling? Rob, let me start with you. How are you, mate?
I'm feeling really good. Feeling really good today. I'm just so excited for tonight. I had a moment last week where I was like, don't know. This happens a few times for me. I don't know if I'm going to do the breath work this time. Not sure I'm going to do
that
it.
quite a bit.
Yeah. It enters my head quite a lot. It's like cold water. It's like, I'm going to avoid that a little bit. There's certain ways I feel more comfortable, like pushing myself and testing myself, and there are other ways which I feel less comfortable. And I think because last week was a bit whatever, I think I was like, I can't face that. But as soon as the day arrives, then I just look forward to it. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing the guys as well.
Yeah, definitely. Mark?
Yeah, I'm good. Today's been a good vibe in our little WhatsApp group. It's like some big energy coming into the studio. I'm excited. I like it when we're all in that mood of kind of quite a good vibe. And it's getting to that point now where there's like lads that have come for 9-10 months. So I genuinely do look forward to seeing some of those faces. And it's like also, I've never been paired up or in a three with some lads that I quite want to have a chat with.
Yeah.
If we can kind of coordinate. I'll sit somewhere else today so I can kind of subtly be next to them.
Yeah, manipulation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like the whole thing's a big manipulation.
What about you? How are you?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm all right. We'll probably get into talking about some of it. I feel like I've come through one of those periods where I was sort of struggling a little bit, and you know what I mean, a little bit not doing the things that I know that are good for me. But back in that sort of flow state, I don't know what you two are like, but like in the way that I work and the way that I show up to life, really, I'm a bit of a sprinter. I have these sprints where I get everything done and everything's brilliant and I'm flying, and then intermittently I have these things where I just get nothing done. And I've learned a bit more.
You're a hunter, not a farmer.
Oh, I've never heard that before. Have you just
Okay,
made that up?
nice.
Have you just made that up?
No. I think there's a book actually centered around ADHD, the subjects of ADHD. I think.
Right.
Where it's talking about like a hunter in a farmer's world, something like that.
Oh, mate, I'm a hunter living in Wiltshire. That's
In amongst all the
the
farms.
farmer's accent. Mate, I'm in love with that.
Yeah,
I'm in love with that, by the way. You're a hunter, not a farmer. Can you give us the book title?
It's something like being a hunter in a farmer's world or something.
Oh, right, okay.
Something like that. But
Sorry,
yeah,
can you explain that a bit more to me?
yeah. So there's a
It's
hunter
going in my head.
farmer's world. Are you being serious?
Yeah, what's the like premise of that book? Obviously, you're in the wrong world. What's the premise?
Okay, the idea is if you're a farmer, you go out and you have your routine every day. You got to go out there, you got to tend the crops, you got to turn up every day. Okay, you're kind of working at a steady pace. Whereas if you're a hunter, you have that goal, you have that big chase where you're trying to go and hunt that wildebeest or whatever it might be.
Get some meat.
Go and get some meat. Yeah, it's a big stressful experience, but you're kind of in a group and you hopefully get a kill. You got the walk back, and once you're back, you feast, and then you rest.
Oh,
and
mate.
chill.
I mean, I resonate a little bit with the farmer, but I'm 100%. I'm a hunter. What are you, Mark?
Probably a farmer.
Yeah, are you?
I
What
love
about-
routine.
Yeah.
Love kind of knowing what I'm going to be doing and just ticking things off.
What about you?
I think, well, when I saw that book title, I was like, oh shit, yeah, kind of like just what you did, basically.
Yeah.
I like aspects of routine. I'm realizing aspects of routine are really important for me, but when I feel most alive, it is when there is some big impending challenge or something that I'm working towards. There's a time element to it. There's risk involved. There's all that sort of stuff. That's when I feel really alive. And also it's the combination of like actually moving, like for a lot of physical challenges that we've done and stuff like that, like the combination of it being a mental challenge and a physical challenge is when I feel really alive.
Yeah.
But in terms from a work perspective, like so many people I think are funneled into these a 5 day a week, 8 hour days where they have to be sat in front of their desk. I know we've talked about it before, where sometimes you're sat there in front, you're looking at the laptop, and you're like, why? What's going on here? Like, am I being productive? Like, am I just sort of responding to things? It would be much, much better if I just closed down the laptop, went and had a rest, and come back tomorrow fresh and energized and stuff like that. I remember actually our guy Pat Diverley.
Yeah.
I heard something that he said which really resonated with me when it comes to work, is not feeling like you have to be sat at the desk for 8 hours and that constitutes a good working day. Why don't you pick the 3 impactful tasks that you could do that day, and whether those tasks take you an hour or 8 hours, you're done when you've done your tasks. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Because, yeah, that's absolutely right. How many times do you have a full day of work, but you don't actually get as much done as you'd like? Whereas if you're like, okay, once I've done this, I can guilt-free go and relax. So I'm trying to do a little bit more of that.
Mate, I do a lot of that. Like almost like self-imposed boundaries and restrictions on myself. Like I'll say to Leah, we're going out for dinner 1 o'clock on Friday. And then it means I've got to go some in the morning to get stuff done if I want to go out and do it. But I get it done. And I do the same with my emails. I used to just constantly be like fluttering about answering emails. Now I just leave them and do them in a block. So like I won't answer many emails, if any, at all today. And then tomorrow morning I'll just sit down and just bosh. Go out hunting and just get them out.
Hunt those emails, baby.
Wait, go out hunting? Yeah.
Question though, can you be a hunter all the time, do you think? Or do you think there has to be elements of farming in your life, so to speak?
Depends how good you are at hunting.
Is the premise of the book, does it bring
I haven't read this book. I've seen the cover of the book.
We shouldn't judge a book by its cover, mate.
No.
It might not be even about what we're talking about. No, but I'd imagine that the book in the end sort of says if you're too much of a hunter, you need to sometimes learn to be a bit of a farmer, maybe?
Maybe.
Or like embrace being a hunter, but know when to be a farmer.
You probably need, it's probably different times in your life where you need different styles of work and managing your life.
This is a rabbit hole I didn't think we would go down.
Midlife crisis, we had the career change. Actually, I'm going into farming.
Yeah. There's part of that which is so appealing.
Love to be a farmer.
Yeah.
I know it's pretty hard work.
Why would you love to be a farmer?
Just that. This is actually not even planned, but purpose. I think there's a purpose to farm. You get up, you've got to look after your land, your animals. You know what you've got to do each day. And if you don't do it, then
they die.
They die, and you don't get any income, or like you can't eat.
But do you not think that genuinely that is embedded in us as people? Like that sort of innate, it's like an innate desire within us to own a little bit of land, have some animals on it, like feed yourself, grow your own food, you know, do your own cow and all of that, have your sort of family and be within a wider community, but your purpose is driven by just sort of nurturing your own existence.
How amazing would it be to just literally, you wake up one morning, it's just like, I've got to get some food, I've got to figure that task out, and I've got to make sure that my shelter is still, you know, going to be good throughout the winter, and you're just focusing on that. You're just in the woods. Wow.
You'd love that, wouldn't you?
I would love that.
But then you've got like people from the local village trying to hunt your animals.
Yeah, well,
We're like,
He's
coming out of the woods being like,
Josh is coming
even better, sharpening the spears.
Oh, right,
no,
yeah,
go
okay.
back. No, but then...
But in essence, that is what we do in our life.
do go on.
Well, like you wake up in the morning, you go to work to provide for your family. So we do that, but we do it in this like way more complex, over-exaggerated way where we're so entwined with everything, when actually your daily routine, what you do on a day-to-day basis is go out and get money to get food for your family. You know, you go out, you hunt, that's work. Yeah, because you go out and you get what you need, and then you come back and you be with your family. And I think, have you ever heard, have you ever heard the Guy Ritchie on Joe Rogan podcast?
I have.
Have you listened to it? Yeah. And he says that every movie is the same and life is the same.
Yeah.
And he says you go off, you go looking for what the answer is, and you look in, he says, in like strip joints and drug houses and all that. And he says, and eventually you sort of just come back to yourself and you find that you had the answers sort of all along. And every good film is based on that storyline. And I think there is a lot of truth in that. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole that I've sent us all down. I'm going to start, I think, with you, Rob. Should we start with you?
Sure.
And let me just ask you, what's coming up for you? What do you want to discuss with us?
Well, I thought this, like I said, alluded to at the beginning. Last week was a mad week. It was really intense, and for nothing in particular was going on, but just in my head, it was just very, very intense. And I had a baby, obviously new baby, little baby Sid, a month ago. Which has been incredible, amazing. Very busy at work. Lots of different projects kind of going on. Wanting to make sure that I've got all my personal admin in order. And I just became a bit overwhelmed, I think, fundamentally. I was explaining this to Mark when we met for a coffee last week. What happens with me is I don't necessarily... It doesn't feel like worry. What happens is my brain becomes so overridden with thought and lists and got to be doing this, I've got to get to this point with this, that my brain becomes so tired and exhausted that I just end up then not being able to concentrate on doing the things I actually want to do, which so it's this kind of like perpetual cycle where would eventually lead to, if I carried on in that way, would eventually lead to like burnout, basically, and has done for me in the past. But what the interesting thing that came up this time was I was almost excited by the feeling. And I'll tell you why, because it was almost like a problem to solve. It was almost like, I know I've got the capacity to get through these feelings, and I will get through these feelings. So I had that assurance there in the back of my mind. It didn't make it any easier at the time when I was lying in bed at 2 a.m, not completely wide awake, struggling to sleep, thinking of all the things I wanted to do and get done. And then obviously like Sid wakes up and say your sleep's crap, and then you go through the process the next day and all the rest of it. But I've been through the process before and be like, I don't know how to deal with this. But now I felt like I had some tools. And I think that the most underrated, health, mental well-being or whatever tool is just time. And actually realizing that it's just going to take a little bit of time. It might be an hour, it might be a day, it might be a week, it might be a month, but it will change. And as soon as I then go through the process of saying it'll just take a bit of time, it then relieves the pressure of trying to fix the feeling, solve the problem, and ironically then actually does almost fix it. So that was kind of my process last week, and it was just tiring in my brain. It was a tiring one.
When you're in that, how do you present? Two questions, right? How do you present when you're at work? So when you're with Mark and the team and everybody else that you work with, and how do you present at home with your wife and the two kids? What do they see? What would Mark see of you last week? How do you present, and what do you present like when you're at home? Is it the same, different?
It's probably be quite interesting to actually ask Mark that,
Because I said, so Rob and I went to an event together, last Wednesday lunchtime, and as soon as I saw him, I was like, oh, there's something on his mind.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a different energy to you, which I hope you don't mind me saying. It's just like, because usually is a certain positiveness to Rob's character that like is just, you associate with him, and then when it's not there, that's when I'm like, oh, something's wrong. So we had the event and then went for some lunch. I just asked him like, what's wrong? And then he kind of started talking. And I was actually, I don't know whether proud's the right word, but what he's just said around this time, he felt excited. It was like he knows now like how to deal with those things. Where in the past, I think it's fair to say maybe that's kind of distracted you a bit or pulled you apart a bit more, and then it's taken a bit more time to come back together. Whereas I feel hopefully this time around, you wrote about on LinkedIn about having those tools that work, that you bought, and I know you were in a bad place on that Wednesday, but actually I was like, oh, he knows how to kind of fix this. which is really cool.
And so for people that would like are listening to this, that perhaps, you know, if there's people that listen to it trying to support particularly a man who's struggling. I know you said he seemed a bit, you could tell there was something up. What could you spot? What was it about him that you could see?
There was just like his reactions to certain conversation cues I was having. There was just like a little bit less enthusiasm, or he seemed a bit distracted from certain things, wasn't responding to my amazing jokes that well.
So he wasn't present. And
because that's the whole thing around, like with mental health, we're talking about a lot about connection. I think if friends, colleagues, loved ones, whoever they are, the more you know them and how they are on a day-to-day, which is why, to tangent off, remote working is really hard as well, because you're not seeing people as often in terms of the mental health thing. I know Rob pretty well now, so I can pick up on those cues quite well, and then I can kind of talk to him about it, which is another reason why it's important to have that group of people that know you quite well to be able to kind of take care of your mental health. And then also, I tried not to frame it too much, and like if he didn't want to talk about it, I just let him shut it down if he wanted to a bit. He can't like force people to understand, but obviously we're close enough to be like, come on, what's going on?
Do you think you were the same at home?
No, definitely not.
So what are you like at home? Because can I tell you why I ask you? The reason I ask you is because I would probably present like you did around you two. You might notice that I'm a bit flat or something, but I like the worst part of me would come out at home. My wife and kids would get worse of me.
So my wife Roz, she's incredible at just, she will never try and fix you or anything. She's just amazing at just being there and supportive and loving. Like I'm extremely lucky with that. What was making it harder for me was she is just only in the last few weeks given birth to a child and is mothering Sid, feeding him through the night. She's tired. She's got a lot on. So I was feeling like I couldn't fully express how I was actually feeling, because I felt like I haven't got it all together in my head at the moment. And as a father of 2 children now, I want to have it all together. This is what was going through my head. I want to have it all together. I want to have the plan. I want to have it all perfect so that there's the least amount of stress and worry possible for my family. That's what was going through my head. So then I was kind of judging myself. Another layer to it was I was kind of judging myself, going like, you're not turning up potentially as the most enthusiastic like husband or whatever possible. And that made it then feel even worse. That having said that, I feel like it was just as you described, really, probably just a little bit, she'd be like, you okay? It'd be that sort of thing, like, what's up? Like, she can sense it, but I'm not like doing anything crazy, but I'm just, it's all because I'm keeping it all in here. And then we had a really, really good chat. I had a really good chat with Mark, basically. I had a really good chat with Roz. Surprise, surprise, like the next day or two, it all just, the clouds lifted and I felt a lot better. And I also started reading a book, and I think that the extra stimulus of getting yourself out of your head and listening to something, learning something, I think is like massively helpful as well. I read this book called Essentialism, which was actually referred to me by John, the mountain guide who's come to... Yeah, he referred it to me. We were chatting on LinkedIn, he referred it to me. And some books just come across to you at the perfect time, right? And it was all about the power of doing less, basically, and deciding which things to prioritize. And that basically helped massively in kind of just formulating and putting a priority list in my head and not stressing myself out that I've got to do it all at once.
Wow. Yeah. And you can see, by the way, how if you didn't have Mark and if you didn't have a partner, or even if you had a partner but that wasn't as emotionally in tune as your wife is, you could see how that could roll into days, weeks, and months, and compound itself, right? All
that was going into my head is that like need to numb the feeling in some way. So I want to have a drink. That's the kind of the feeling that you want to have. Or I do a lot of it through exercise. So I was training very hard, that sort of stuff. But I didn't do that. I didn't have any alcohol. I I just sort of tried to sit with it. Whereas in the past, I might just kind of like have a few drinks or whatever. Actually, there was one night last week where I did have a drink and I felt guilty almost for it, which is another thing. But yeah. So that was my last week.
Good, man. Good. A lot to learn. Mark, what about you?
Me. The last, this is kind of probably been a theme the last 6 weeks or so in terms of a bit more of a personal share, but I've kind of met someone in the last few months, a woman that I really quite like, and getting to know her has been amazing, but there's a certain amount of vulnerability there in opening up about my past, which in the past I probably wouldn't have shared as much because you don't want to scare people off. You don't want to like them to know too much. And in that early stages, you kind of want people to like who you are. And my fear was always more open up. They might be like put off, and then in fact that has happened a few times. So for me, like trying to be brave enough to be vulnerable to say, okay, this is my past. This is what's happened, and like trying to be okay with the fact that you might get rejected. It hasn't been, which has been great, but that's been kind of a hard part for me to open up what has like been kind of wounds from the past that I've like healed, but you got to open up those a little bit to kind of let them in, and that's difficult at times. Like just to really expose yourself to also them being hurt again potentially is could be a worry, but yeah, so that's what's been kind of going on the last kind of about 6 weeks. So as things have kind of started to kind of get a little bit more serious, it's something I've tried to not force myself. Well, I have kind of had to force myself to do, but I've wanted to do things differently this time around to kind of like just be my true self from the off, and yeah, see what they think.
What do you feel like in the past? Then you've gone into relationships and not been your
not
true self?
necessarily, but like there's certain things that happened in my past that I maybe would have kind of kept a bit more private until further down the line, or just being a bit more kind of fearful of. And with this one, I just wanted to kind of be completely open and honest from the off. So yeah, it's just more recently. I'm talking the last 2 years or so, and then I've kind of dated a little bit in that period, but it's kind of put some people off. And this time around, I was just like, just kind of need to be honest from the off and see what happens. And if it goes tits up, it goes tits up. But so far it hasn't, so it's quite good. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
have you seen him doing this? Have you seen?
Well,
him
obviously,
go-
I've been kind of in the loop with, and just like we were discussing earlier, like when Mark's a little bit off, I can sense it relatively quickly.
What does he go like when he's off?
Withdraws.
very quiet.
Oh yeah.
He withdraws. He kind of.
He's normally really loud and
Yeah,
He has a
gregarious.
obnoxious.
He has a little glossy look in his eye, basically.
Glossy.
Yeah, like
Glossy.
like if I look at you like that, it's like I'm slightly going cross-eyed, but you can't quite tell.
It like fills my mind, and I find it very hard to like think of other things.
Yeah.
If I'm worried or anxious about something.
Okay.
Yeah.
How important is it though to have someone in, like you were saying, that can pick up on those little cues?
Yeah,
Like
massive.
so valuable, isn't it?
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying, it's like you do exactly as you were saying with me. I've always said, like, to other people, to like our mutual friends and stuff, like, if you're going through a tough one with a certain whatever it might be, I'd be like, yeah, but he's gonna be fine. Like I just know it. It's like I've got complete ease in it, because it's like, if you boil it down to like, Mark's fucking good guy, got an amazing body.
Has he? Have you?
I just don't get out.
He can cook. Like, it's gonna be okay. So that's what my feeling has always kind of been. And yeah, it's just been nice seeing. Yeah, it seems like I can't wait to meet her.
Have you not met her yet?
No, it's in the diary.
Oh, we're being all honest with her, but not the other.
Yeah,
way.
Rob, just trying to get his diary aligned with mine. Is
Oh yeah, busy man.
very busy man. He's got a newborn and stuff.
I've
Yeah.
met her. She's all right. I
Yeah.
think she's nice.
Yeah, we've been double dating.
Oh,
That would be a real wound for you, wouldn't it?
Does it feel quite freeing to be able to do it?
Be vulnerable.
Yeah, with like a fairly new girlfriend.
Yeah, and it's like it is a weight on me until, and I like you don't want to do it first date type thing, but as soon as like you talk about those things, there is a weight off my chest that's like, like I've.
Can I just? I hope if you don't like me bringing this up, we can cut it out. But a girl that you're dating, a woman that you were dating, I remember it ended,
Yeah.
and she had said like, I just feel like maybe you just don't need to be as into it from the start, right? And what's so nice is that you at that point were questioning a little bit about like, is there do I need to approach this differently? And what's been so nice is that he just, like you said, he just went into this recent relationship like, this is me. And it was just matched on energy from what I hear and everything like that. And so that's just so
Well,
nice,
so it's
isn't it?
almost like you had a bit of feedback, shall we say, from somebody else that you were dating.
I got angry. I got
a bit,
angry.
What, bit full on? Is that what you
No,
mean?
no. I also, they said that I gave across this, which I think in retrospect is probably quite fair feedback of like almost wanting to come across as this like Prince Charming type character and like everything's perfect, whereas that's not actually reality all the time. And then as soon as I kind of relaxed and opened up a bit in terms of like being a bit more real, but like, oh, that was actually much more attractive, but now it's too late. And like it was ended,
Right.
which was quite hard to kind of swallow.
I find it.
So I just tried to be a bit more relaxed this time, basically, because I don't, like most people, I want to be liked, and sometimes it's like it can come across as like I would say I'm quite a nice guy anyway, regardless, because sometimes that can come across as too much. I don't know.
I find that so interesting though. So on that, right, critiquing someone almost on how they would potentially enter a relationship, I think is quite a strange thing to do. It's like you can talk about how you feel. That's all someone can really talk about, right? They can talk about how they feel. Like when you did this made me feel like this way.
Yeah.
But and I might be getting this wrong, but I think it's wrong and unfair for someone to give you like marks out of 10 on when you did this was wrong or this was right, and when you did it, rather than being like, this is how I felt when you did that, and then when you did this, I felt way more like this. And do you see the difference?
Yeah.
There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
There's a big difference there, and
But that pissed me off at the time. But
Mm.
then actually now it's like actually
Doesn't-
a blessing really. That,
yeah,
like,
exactly. It doesn't
yeah,
matter, does
so,
it? But yeah, still.
No, but and I think like whenever you enter into any kind of romantic relationship like that, I mean, it doesn't often end. They don't often end well, do they? Because it's
The odds.
if someone wants to end it and the other one's not particularly keen on ending it, then there's no really nice way of doing it. Because I know as you know, what I would do is I'd be like, well, why you leaving? Well, like, if they did that nice way that you did, I'd probably push and say that ain't good enough. Do you know what I mean? Well, what do you mean? That, like, if you feel like that's what, if you feel like that, then you can change, type thing. So, I think it can always get messy, but that's why. And you don't hear. This is why this kind of thing I think is brilliant. You don't hear men talking like this way. You know, talking about difficulties in relationships and what that's. I learned about relationships in pubs. And it was all, oh, fuck her then if she don't want it. Let her go and get another bird and all that sort of... Do you know what I mean? And like, although I kind of had a sense and a knowing that that was bravado, I still had nowhere where I could have a proper conversation with people about it and be like, you know, what do you think, Rob? This girl that I was with has said this about me. What's your honest thoughts? I never, you know, in the past in my life, I didn't have a group of men where I could do that. And I think there's huge risk in getting into a relationship. I don't think men talk about it, right? Huge risk in terms of, you know, what you're essentially talking about, and what I hear that you're talking about is that with this girl that you're with now, you've opened up a big bit of yourself, of your heart, and you've gave it to her, and you're letting her hold it, and there's risk, right?
Yeah.
Because she might not like holding it and want to give you it back, and then like you're fucking back to square one. Do you know what I mean? So, and just it's so refreshing for me to hear men talk about this stuff in a way that just seems where it seems normal. fuck, he gets scared about that stuff as well.
And
what I mean?
something I've kind of learned probably across the last year as well is I can be quite an impatient person, as Rob probably knows, in terms of I want to like knee-jerk reactions, and I want a knee-jerk response. Like if I send you a message or a voice note, you better reply like quite soon because I need that. Whereas with this sort of stuff, I've also realised it's quite important to let the other person sit with that information, that news, because they're going to need some time to kind of process it, hopefully in a positive way, rather than giving them the information and then being like, so what do you think about that?
Do you mean like when you are
vulnerable,
vulnerable
yeah.
about something, right?
Obviously you talk about it a little bit then, but then not being afraid to come back to it in a few days or a week or so to be like, do you want to talk about how you found that, not in as a formal way, but like allowing them a bit
That's really
thinking
interesting.
time and space to think what they think of that scenario. And then, because I think you get a better response than otherwise, because immediately if someone found out a bit of news that was a bit kind of shocking or like out there and you ask them for their reaction straight away, they're probably not going to think, oh yeah, fine with that, don't worry about it. But once they've got their head about it, and then also give them the opportunity to, which it takes even more vulnerability, ask a few questions, and as long as you're honest and open about it, then I think it's good in the long run. But if you start like trying to hide things or cover things up or rose tinted or whatever, then that's when you catch you out longer term. So I just tried to kind of lay it all out and answer any questions honestly about stuff, and then it seems to be fine so far. So yeah, it's good.
Because you're only in prison for 10 years or something.
Right, that's enough about me, enough about my vulnerability. Josh, what's been going on with you?
So
Just want to bring some attention to the tissue. What's this about?
So from about October, when it gets to October, I carry a piece of tissue around with Orbisil on it.
Sorry, what?
Lifesaver, that stuff.
Is it Orbisil? Is that what it's called?
Olbas oil.
Yeah. What did I call it?
Olbasol.
What's that? That's probably.
What did you call it? Say it again. Ulbasil. Well, he said when we were walking here as well, he's like, I usually get the tube to Southwark.
Actually. No, he didn't.
You did.
Like
Sorry, carry on, Josh. Sorry.
Oh, I've gone again. Yeah, so I put the Orbisil. What is it?
Olbas oil, I think. I mean,
Orbas oil, not Orbisil.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. So I put that on the tissue and I breathe that. I love Vicks as well.
On the trip. Do you wear it for football?
Yeah, I put loads on there and then I put loads of Orbisil on it as well. I'm going to keep calling it that. So, yeah, that's what I do. That's what I carry about. Yeah, for me, so it's, did you know of like Stoptober? Did you know?
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Heard that.
So it's like it's like a month where they, if you're going to stop anything, it used to be quite big on smoking, I think. People used to quit smoking in October as well.
So it's dry Jan, but for anything sort of.
Essentially, yeah. Stop doing something that you wanna do, and then apparently the first day. So no, not the first day. Yesterday, whatever that date was, the 3rd of October is. I noticed is alcohol-free day. Never heard of that. I don't know if it's the first year of it.
There's a day for everything, mate.
Yeah, which is good actually. I think there should be days for everything. I can tell you a bit of history about why it's good to have days for everything, but I'll save that for another pod. So
I want to hear.
Just
well, a lot of people. So because I do a lot. Obviously, I work in the. We all do work in the mental health space, and you'll get a lot of the sort of mental health speakers on Mental Health Awareness Day. Will be like, I'm not saying anything today. Every day is Mental Health Awareness Day for me. Yeah, and they get a little bit like, I'm not speaking because it's ridiculous. It's not just one day, but we have COA week for children of alcoholics. Children in February, and that is the only time. We've had big campaigns in the past, but most years that's the only time when the press or anyone will listen to you. So it actually has massive, huge importance. The fact that Mental Health Awareness Day has less importance now and almost seems a little bit silly is testament to the fact that we've had so much awareness raised around it, because once upon a time it was the only day people listened to it. So they are important. But yeah, so Alcohol-Free Day came up, and like as somebody who's over 10 years sober, I don't talk much about my sobriety, and I'm sort of aware that I don't. And the reason I don't talk about it, I think, is because of like a number of things. One, it's not at the front of my mind that I don't drink anymore, right? It's more like the healing work that I do to stay in that place. But I was reflecting on it, particularly yesterday. I was telling Rob on the way here, I was in a hotel last night, and I hate them. I hate staying in a hotel. I'm on my own. I'm alright if I'm with people, but on my own, I hate it. I get all anxious, and it makes me feel horrible. And I was thinking about it last night, and I spent so much of my late teens, early 20s in bed sits, right? Like, basically failed at life with nothing and no one. And it's easy for me to forget that my sobriety and staying sober is like the key foundation of everything that I do. Like, while I stay sober, I have a chance. If I drink again, like, you know, I've said to my wife, if I ever drink again, leave. Don't she know? Like, that's, I don't say that for effect. That's true. I say to her, don't ever let me convince you that I'm going to just have one, or that it's like things are different. I was like, I'll change in every way over the course of our life, but if I ever drink, go, leave. And she knows that. But when I look at a lot of the, like, things get polarized, don't they? And sobriety, I think it's great that there's so much awareness around it now, and it's like, it's almost easier to get sober. But I think sometimes it can make people lose sight of, like, I don't know, I was going to say full-blown alcoholics like I was, like, I didn't, you know, just drink too much every now and then. My life was a complete and utter shit show. And I recognize, you know, that stopping drinking was just the beginning, and that drinking was just my reaction. You talked about it already, Rob, about numbing. And that's how I numbed out all of my pain, but I had so much pain. And stopping drinking just gave me the opportunity to explore that. But I do feel like we need to have much better conversations about alcohol, because I realised that alcohol wasn't my problem. Alcohol was like an attempt at a solution. Do you know what I mean? It was an attempt at a fix for me. But I do want people to understand that if you're like me, when you stop, it's painful, man. A painful experience.
Yeah, you talk a lot about it's not as simple as just stopping drinking will fix it. It's like you got to find something else, or what the root cause is, and then replace it with other habits. Do you want me to ask, do you still ever crave having a drink?
No, I haven't thought about a drink for years now, but I've thought about ending it all, and I've thought about not wanting to be here, and I've thought about what I would give to do something or take something that makes me skip a night, to take the edge off of it. I just don't associate alcohol with that anymore, because it's not in my life, and I do seek other ways. Unhealthy food is a terrible one for me, and I get caught in that shame cycle of doing it. So it's not even that 10 years on, now that I don't think about alcohol, that I've sort of sorted it all out. I just find new ways to numb out, to take the edge off of life, because sometimes life feels unbearable to me. And when I drank alcohol, it took all of that away and stopped it all. So it's natural that, you know, I obsessed about it in the way that I did. Natural, probably the wrong word, but it makes sense that I did. Do you know what I mean? But I think a lot of people numb out with alcohol. That doesn't mean that alcohol is a problem. It just means it's good at numbing you out.
Yeah,
it does the job. Yeah. So alcohol in itself is not bad. It's the relationship with it. And my relationship with it was so toxic, I had to stop. I don't think that's true for everybody, but I do think people could do with just adjusting their relationship with it, having a break, or being mindful about how they use it. You know, Rob, you said earlier that you wanted to have a drink when it was all a bit of a shit show, but you realised actually that ain't the right time to have a drink. Yeah. And that's quite what I would say, a healthy relationship. Do you know what I mean? Mm. How often do you two drink?
So I had a drink, and when I say drink, I just mean like literally one drink or maybe two. Every day after Sid was born for sort of 2.5 weeks.
Did you? Yeah. What would you drink?
Just a glass of wine. Yeah. Would probably be it. I'm not a massive beer drinker.
Probably quite middle class.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Weren't cider, was it?
I was cooking the dinners, and it was just really nice when I was cooking the dinner. It was a bit of a kind of you know,
Michael Bublé on the background.
Sorry?
Michael Bublé in the background.
Yeah, exactly. But I in the run up to I did it before Frida was born as well. I had less alcohol in the run up to them being born. I think partly just wanting to kind of, and actually a month after Frida was born, I didn't drink for a month after she was born, just because it was so, up in the night and everything like that. And it was, I didn't really feel, because it was a small amount every day, but then I started to think like, I wasn't going out planning to drink every day for 2.5 weeks. It's just like, I'll have one tonight, sure. And then I think the relationship with alcohol is just so, we talk about it a lot, don't we? It's a really weird one. So my granddad was an alcoholic. He died when he was 55. He died of lung cancer in the end, but he was the first person on the scene of an IRA bomb in London. So he was a doctor in the army. He was the first person on the scene. People's limbs blown off, okay? And he saw people die. He had to, all the rest of it. So he went through that trauma. And from what my dad and my grandma tells me is basically the drinking kind of got worse kind of after that. Now he was a happy drunk from what I hear. Like he is the person you want to be if you're a heavy drinker. Just like life and soul of the party, just like worst case scenario, you might fall asleep. If I drink too much, I'm not that person. I will be my classic thing at uni if I drank too much was I'd just run away. I'd just run for whatever reason. And I went through a period after university when I dropped out of university. I didn't know what I wanted to do and all the rest of it. Of basically, if I was going on a night out, I'd drink too much, have loads of blackout nights, get in fights, run away, do stupid shit.
Did you proper blackout then? Where you couldn't
many times, so many times. Yeah, so many times. I was run out, like to the point where a friend had sit me, a friend of mine who I really respect, and he wouldn't say anything. If he says something, you listen. And he said, Rob, you need to sort this out. Like, you're not fun to go on a night out with. And it wasn't like it was instantaneous like that, but it started a process of really kind of. Wow. It doesn't mean I don't have a big night potentially in me if I have too much to drink. Yeah. But it's just it's just way better managed. But so I had this kind of weird relationship with alcohol, not to try and commandeer your subject, but I find it so interesting as well, thinking of people who do drink a moderate amount or maybe do binge drink, but then they're not an alcoholic. There's so many different relationships that you can have with alcohol.
Yeah, and that's one of the big problems is that we make it binary. So we're like, you either have a problem or you don't. And that's what it always was with me. People used to say to me, do you drink every day? And I'd be like, well, not every single day, no. Okay, well, so you're not an alcoholic. And I'd be looking at my life thinking, when I look back at it now, it didn't matter that I didn't drink every day. And the only reason I didn't drink every day is because my body would shut down, and just completely reject it. So like I always say, people should look at it like you would look at a relationship, right? Where like a loving relationship. If you come to me and said, keep arguing with my missus, I wouldn't go, what? But that's toxic. You need to leave. I'd be like, well, what's going on? Let's have a look. Do you need to adjust your, what are you doing? Do you need to make changes? Are you doing it too much? Are you drinking too often? Are you drinking for the wrong reasons? What are you like? There's so many things to explore in terms of your relationship with it. And I think a lot of people, do well to have a bit of a reset or, like a moment where somebody sits you down, those kind of things. My problem, I tell you, my main problem with alcohol is that I can ruin my life in one night. I haven't drank it. That's what the problem. So, if I drank now, say we went and had a drink tonight at Uncommon Man and I started having a few bevies, I wouldn't go home. And then I'd black out and I'd go missing for 2 or 3 days. Then I've got to go, and I would have been doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. And then I've got to go home to my wife. Yeah. And she says, why have you done it? And I've got no idea. No idea.
How many things, if you have any regrets in life, like I think I would probably say every single one of my regrets is as a result of alcohol.
Yeah.
Every single one. Like everything else had a reason why I was kind of doing it. You know what I mean? I don't regret it. It was just, I might have made a mistake at work or, it's not something I would regret, but there are things that I regret doing under the influence of alcohol. And for me, it's like, I just think about it way more at the moment, obviously having like a young family, just thinking like I don't ever, want to put anyone in a position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't want to be hanging around the kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like we go on holiday and go away with the kids and stuff, and I'm fresh as a daisy. 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm up. Let's do it. I'm never rough or anything. Do you drink much, Mark?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where Rob and I
We joke about it a bit.
Joke about it a bit. Going through probably a period where I am drinking more at the weekends than I would probably want to, but I'm
Well, you are now.
at the moment, like it's been a very, very social summer. Like lots of weddings, lots of like things. I'm having a lot of fun, but it's like the weekends are a lot of drinking, and during the week I don't drink too much. Like I wouldn't really get pissed too much during the week, but at the weekends it's what you would probably deem binge drinking. So it's like probably at the point where I'm like, I don't think it's a problem, but it's like if that carries on like every other weekend for years, then that's like health wise is more of a problem for me. And I do start to feel the effects of like if I drink on a Saturday night or maybe like a Sunday lunch, Monday morning, came into work a couple of Mondays ago and I just felt quite anxious and weird all day in the office. I couldn't work out why. I spoke to Rob about it, which is something I'm trying to do more of, rather than if I'm feeling anxious, as he's kind of mentioned, I'll just be silent and retreat. So I brought it up in the afternoon. I was like, you know what, I was feeling pretty weird and anxious this morning. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And then we talked about it and he was like, did you drink yesterday? Yeah, I'd had like half a bottle of wine at lunch with a mate. And it's often sometimes like if I trace it back, it can be those days where actually I've had a bit to drink impacts my mental health. So I don't have the answer yet what it is, but it's just something I'm especially trying to be, I'm more aware of it now, especially as I get into my 30s. It's probably like less accepted. In your 20s, you can be a bit of a mess and like it's quite funny, but like in your 30s, you want to get yourself together a bit.
What are the positives that you get from booze?
I enjoy it. I don't.
What do you enjoy about it?
Social lubricant, loosens you up.
Yeah, loosens me up a bit. For the most part, to a degree, I enjoy like the taste of it.
Yeah.
And I find it quite relaxing, which is quite like the alcohol-free beers because I still get that kind of feeling from it. I tend to have quite a bit of fun when I'm drunk. Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, I don't go too weird.
Helps you tell all your girlfriend all the things. That
Exactly. Yeah, just get as pissed as you can and then tell her everything.
So I find this is a thought process I go through. So the reason I ask that is because I think, okay, well, how can you replicate those those positive qualities? Okay, so basically what you're talking about is you have a state change from drinking alcohol, whether it is a relaxing state change or an energizing and social state change. It's like, okay, well, how can I do that in another way that isn't in effect a toxic substance that I'm putting in my body and gives me those after effects which I don't like? So I'm trying to work out like, what is that for me? There's that, when you're sat around a table with your mates and you're a pint in, you just ordered your second, there's a feeling that's very hard to replicate there.
Have you ever replicated it?
Well, the closest I've come is probably something Uncommon Man related.
Yeah.
Because you're going deeper into some of, you're having good, proper conversations. And often, once you've got all the small talk out of the way, when you're a pint in, is probably when you're having the best kind of conversations. It's not 5 pints in. So that's definitely, there's something there. More regular meetups whereby
if you go, well, I'm conscious of time, so
Yeah.
we've only got a couple of minutes, but if you go to some of the most deprived areas in England, what you'll find the most of is churches and off licenses, right? And I think the reason you find the most of them in the most deprived areas is because they give people hope and connection. Yeah, both of them, right?
Yeah.
They offer it in some way. I think what we're doing with Uncommon Man is we create that bond. Right, so you don't necessarily need the alcohol. The one thing I would say is I've been at it for 10 years and I've not found anything that replicates it instantly. Not when you can just literally drink a pint of liquid and it has that impact. I kidded myself for a lot of time, and I think a lot of people that have to quit alcohol convince themselves that everything's amazing without it and you don't ever need it and alcohol's terrible and you can have an amazing time without it. And you can, but you won't replicate it, right? Not properly. And there's lots of different things that you can do, but eventually the honeymoon period, I believe, does wear off for all of those things. I think I'm summarising what we're saying a little bit because of time on the alcohol conversation. But when you take your example, Mark, like your life circumstances at the moment, there's a lot of socialising. You're young, you haven't got a family. You know, you're just going into a relationship that, you know, that's starting to take off a bit. That'll probably change the way that you drink, right? As you spend more and more time together. I think the big thing is when you start messing up and missing things because of it that you don't want to, that's when I think it becomes a problem. The hangover and the anxiety that you feel on a Monday, that's the payoff, or that's that's the cost.
The trade-off.
That's the cost. If you want to have a good night out on a beer, if you can deal with the cost on a Monday, then it ain't a problem. You're just dealing with the cost. I stopped playing football at the level I played at last season because I couldn't deal with the cost anymore, which was I couldn't walk for 4 days after the game. I could play, but I couldn't deal with the way that I felt afterwards. So I had to nip it in the bud. It's a problem if you can't nip it in the bud. If you're in a relationship and this girl, and it takes off and she starts saying, I really do like you, but this drinking's causing a lot of problems. And you think she's right and I want to stop. But every fucking week you find yourself in the same position saying to her, I don't know why I've done it again. Then you're in a problem. If you want to take your kids out on Saturday for the day with your wife and you fucking smashed it on Friday night again, and you only meant to have one, but you didn't, you had 10, then there's a problem. And I think that's probably one of the greatest markers, is the influence that it's having on you and your relationships and your ability to show up to them in the way that you wanted to. And that doesn't always mean stop. It just means being aware.
Yeah.
I'm very wary of time because I know the cameras are even going to run out as well. Anything else we want to add before we wrap this up? It's been a really, really good conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we've gone in all sorts of different directions.
What I like is that we're kind of working our thoughts through in our heads. And they're not crystal clear.
No.
Like they're not. And I think that's so important, because I think so many times you hear just like clips of people that have like basically scripted something.
Yeah,
ready to say.
And they go, if you do this, this, and this, you never have to drink again, or you'll never feel shit again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So,
no,
brilliant,
I've
lads.
appreciated the chat, lads.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it, and roll on, come on.
Time
man,
for
in a couple of
tonight.
hours.
Woo!